Hi, and welcome to the Holly C Podcast, a show about expressing your brilliance with ease and flow. I'll show you how to take the woo-woo out of the clouds and apply it to real life for effortless action. This show is for world changers and future world changers, so if you know there's more to life and you're wondering what's next, this is your show. Hi, I'm Holly, your host. I'm a speaker, author, teacher of health, vitality, and spirituality, a dragon spirit guide, and I'm also an amazing manifester. One of the most powerful ways that I manifest is to be mindful of my words. Now, we all know that we should try to avoid saying negative things like, I can't afford this, or we've heard the advice to state things in the present moment, like for whatever you want to manifest, like I'm driving my new car, as opposed to I will be getting a new car someday. Okay, that's the obvious stuff. So how would you like to supercharge your manifesting powers by looking at what is not obvious? Now, last episode 23, I did what I call a wishing well, where you could put a wish, an intention out into the universe for yourself, for someone you love, for your community or your country, and for planet Earth. And by aligning with the energy of the universe, you were aligning yourself with your intention, with making it happen, with manifesting what you want. So this episode is kind of like a part 2 to that. So you don't need to listen to episode 23, but I would suggest that you do so that when you're listening to this episode, so that you can focus on what you want to manifest. But you can still listen to this episode without listening to the previous one, episode 23, called Wishing Well. As I alluded to at the beginning, this isn't about the standard typical advice on how to manage your thoughts and your words in order to manifest. We're going to take it to another level. In fact, we're actually going to flip things around. Instead, we're going to look at where we are giving away our power with what we say, and we may not even be conscious of it. We have some inkling of this, but it's a very sneaky behavior that is easy to slide under the radar, and until you actually hear what it is, you don't realize how often you're giving away your own power and how often you are actually blocking what it is that you want to manifest. So for me, I had this realization only a few weeks ago. It was during the midterm elections. There was a person who was sending bombs to a lot of Democratic politicians. And I was in a kung fu lesson, and my instructor, Master Xing, was remarking about the bombings, asked if I had heard about them. And my initial reply was, which one? Because my thoughts were, there's so many things happening in the world lately, so much chaos and destruction and people going off the deep end and killing other people. So we had a little bit of back and forth dialogue about the current events. And then this is the phrase that basically woke me up, is when I said, yeah, there are a lot of angry people in the world. And this was in reference to a lot of the shootings and killings and bombings that I'd been hearing about in the news. But after I said that, I had this realization that by saying there are a lot of angry people in the world, I was actually contributing to the manifestation of that, to the perception that there are a lot of angry people in the world. So saying things that you don't actually mean is very disempowering to us. So it got me thinking about all the interactions that we have with other people where we say things, we repeat things like parrots or like robots, and we don't actually really mean them. So let me give some examples. How many times have you heard someone say, that restored my faith in humanity? But that's a phrase. Is that really how you would speak? if you really were conscious of what you were saying, did you really lose faith in humanity? Or when people say, yeah, there's a lot of crazy people out there, or like what I said, there's a lot of angry people out there. That may be true to a certain degree, but it implies that mostly everybody is angry out there, or there are way, way more crazy people out there than there actually are. And my apologies for using the term crazy. I know it could be politically incorrect. I'm just using the phrase that is very common. So when we focus, and I'm guilty of this, of paying attention to the news too much, but when we focus on all those things we see, and then we have these conversations almost on autopilot with acquaintances or friends and family, and then we repeat phrases and words that are disempowering to ourselves and to humanity, where we say things like, what's going on with the world? Everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Phrases like that, where we say, what's wrong? We're making idle chit-chat. Kind of like how when somebody says, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. Or nice weather we're getting. We're repeating phrases that we don't really mean. And you might be thinking, of course I mean that. But really look at what you see in your life. The phrase you are repeating, is it really true for you? Is it really true for what you experience? Or is it true for what you see reported in the media, or what you see based on other people's conversations, or where you're putting your attention and focus? So I had to look at my life and go, are there really a lot of angry people in my life? When I walk down the street, when I drive into San Francisco, are there really a lot of angry people? Yeah, occasionally there will be somebody who's tailgating me, or there's somebody who cuts ahead of me or won't let me into their lane. But how often does that happen? I mean, really, how often does that happen for you? Does that happen every single time you drive, every minute? Or are there hundreds, possibly thousands of cars that you pass in your commute, and nobody's acting in an angry way, but we don't notice that, and we don't acknowledge that and appreciate that? When you hear stories of road rage, yeah, there's all these angry drivers out there. Are there really? Are you angry all the time? I mean, just look in your own car. Are you angry all the time? Yeah, there's times where I get pissed off, but is it the majority of the time I'm driving? Or is it a very small percentage of the time for one particular drive, which is just one amongst the dozens upon dozens of times where I go out and run errands, and it's completely insignificant because nothing happens? Now let's look at this idea of angry people in the world doing hurtful things. Yes, that is happening, but look at your world, look at who you're surrounded by, look at your community. How often do you personally encounter angry people? And I'm not saying that there aren't any, and I'm not saying that there aren't people doing bad things, and I'm not saying that there aren't people hurting other people. But when you actually pay attention to what you see, how many hundreds, thousands of people do you come across over the course of a few weeks? When you go shopping at the supermarket, how many people do you see? If you take the train to work, how many people are riding that train with you? How many are passing in other trains? This all happens without incident. If anything, you could say there are a lot of mild-mannered people on the train. Nobody ever talks about that. You don't have idle chit-chat with somebody. You get into work around the water cooler and say, wow, what an uneventful commute I had. Nobody talks like that. We focus on what's different. And by doing so, we are magnifying that, as in holding a magnifying glass over it and making it bigger than what it is. And we repeat these phrases like rote, because if you look at a child, they don't speak this way. They don't use phrases like, I've lost faith in humanity. These are phrases that we learn from observing other people using them, not so much from our own experiences. Because even if you are betrayed and you feel like you've quote unquote lost your faith in humanity, and I know I've had that experience as a teenager, but if I really looked at the truth, my parents still loved me. My friends were still there to support me. Just because one asshole did something to betray my trust, there really wasn't a reason to lose faith in humanity, except to say it because I'd heard that phrase before. And so I could label myself that way and disempower myself that way and cut myself off from all the love and support surrounding me. Look at your world. Is it really that bad? Don't look at the world that other people tell you about. Don't look at the world as you see on the TV or you read in the papers or read online in the news sites. Look at what's really going on in your life. Look at your truth. Look at your friends and family and community. How many of them do you see celebrating Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays or birthdays, graduations, weddings? And there's a lot of love and support there. It's not full of angry people. It's not full of people who have no faith in humanity. There's a lot of humanity there. And when you start to look for that, even in the mainstream media, you can see by reading between the lines that there is a lot of humanity. For example, not too far from where I live, the town of Paradise was devastated by the fires in Northern California. And there were thousands of people helping out, thousands of firefighters, rescue, emergency personnel working to control these fires. There were a lot of people going above and beyond to help. Thousands of people giving money, people volunteering to look after injured animals or to help people find their horses. There was a lot of humanity, and that goes on all the time. But it was harder to find those stories than to find the stories of the devastation. And perhaps I saw just a little bit more of that just because I was closer to the fire than, say, somebody who lived in New York. And because I was closer, I knew more people who were affected by the fires. And I saw how they were responding. And there was a lot of humanity and love and care and compassion there. But that doesn't get reported. And that's not what is commented on that often, but I see a shift. And it all begins with your own words. The next time you want to say something like, what's wrong with the world, catch yourself and realize that that phrase is just a phrase that we repeat because we've seen it repeated numerous times. We've heard it ourselves, other people repeating it, but who started it first? And is it really truly valid? Because when you look for its opposite, like what is going on in the world, you will see a lot of reasons for hope and optimism. I just saw a video the other day about this man who studies coral, and by accident, he discovered how to help coral reproduce. Now, there's a lot of concern about the world's coral reefs suffering a lot of damage from pollution and climate change, and it's significant because coral can take decades upon decades to grow to substantial size. And what this man discovered by accident is that he accidentally broke a piece of coral in a tank that he was monitoring. He said he was picking it up, but it was adhered to the surface, and as a result, it broke into multiple fragments. And what he found was that within a few weeks, those multiple fragments had regrown into the original size of coral before it had broken into pieces. So this was something that would take months to happen, and it happened in just a few weeks. And what they discovered was if they broke coral into small fragments. And then, I don't know the exact term, I think I'm going to say planted them close to each other. The coral would grow back to that original size before it was broken very quickly. Then when it came into contact with one of those original fragments that had regrown, it would recognize itself and fuse and join back to its original pieces. So kind of like in the movie Terminator 2, when the bad guy liquefies and he's all those little silver blobs like mercury, and then it all rejoins. That's what the coral was doing. When it grew to a size, it reconnected with itself, and then it would fuse and rejoin. And then by encouraging this process, they could actually restore coral reefs at a much quicker rate than ever originally thought. I believe the man, I wish I could remember his name, but he said that he believed that if the whole world was working on this to restore coral using this process, they could plant like 1 million coral in 1 to 2 years. Whereas previously it was thought that this could take decades or over 100 years for this type of achievement. So there is reason for hope. But when we use words and phrases that are defeatist, we disempower ourselves because we strip away our hope a little bit each time we repeat these phrases. So rather than ask you to always be stating things with like positive affirmations and in the present tense, what it is that you want to manifest, I'm going to ask you for the next week to just pay attention to when you repeat something that is not really true to your heart and soul. When you say words or phrases that you picked up from somewhere else, but if you really look within, they don't belong in your personal dictionary. They're somebody else's phrases. Who knows who started it first? But you know that you could stop it right now with you. So this is just another way of being mindful of what you say and what you think, which influences how you feel. Just imagine if your well of hope was unlimited. We don't act when we don't feel that we can make a difference. We don't act when we feel disempowered. But when we make the small shift to be aware of our words, the power of our words, it changes us. It doesn't happen overnight, but just little by little each day with the mindfulness, we shift into our own power. We shift into embracing our power, embodying our brilliance. And that is what I want for you more than anything in the world that I could wish for you, is for you to embody your brilliance. Because one person awakened in their brilliance is immensely powerful. And just imagine, like the shampoo commercial from the 70s where so-and-so told 2 friends who told 2 friends, you embrace your power, and then 2 friends or family members see you expressing your brilliance, and it inspires them, and so on, and so on, and so on. There's a lot of power in your words. Take a breath right now and just feel into your own power. Even just saying the word power, or thinking the word power, feeling it in your body is powerful, isn't it? And when you have that manifesting juice behind your intentions, you're going to align with the universe, with the higher vibration, to manifest your intentions. And when you tune into that, you're aligning with your highest vibration. And that gives you your magical manifesting powers. So go forth and manifest. And I will connect with you again next week. A new episode of Holly C. Express Your Brilliance with Ease and Flow is released every Monday. You can find all the episodes on my website, www.hollyc.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll connect again with you soon. Bye for now.